Okay, yesterday, if you remember, we dealt with 2 days ago. We were talking about how Yosef's brothers sold him into captivity. That's 2 days ago, and then yesterday, all of a sudden, we started talking about a seemingly unrelated subject, which was how Yehuda, the fourth of the sons of Jacob, how he got all involved with his daughter-in-law and got her pregnant, and she gave birth to two people called Zerach and Peretz. And Zerach stuck his hand out first and then pulled it back, and Peretz came out. And this is sort of a sordid story. But what's that got to do with anything? Well, first of all, it's an interruption. It simply interrupts. So the story of Yosef doesn't get too intense. His brother's selling him down into Egypt, and now we're going to see he goes into prison in Egypt. But also to tell you that just as Yehuda was really the main one that was the cause of Yosef being sold into captivity, as Yosef went down into captivity, Yehuda also went down. So it tells the story about that. But in addition, it also tells the point of the whole thing is that the Mashiach is going to come. Yosef goes down to Egypt. He saves all the Jewish people. And also he brings eventually he saves them all, but he brings them down into Egyptian captivity in order that they'll be able to fulfill the promise that God made to Abraham that they'll be slaves in Egypt. But then they're going to go out and they're going to receive the Torah. And then by receiving the Torah, eventually they'll go into the land of Israel. And that's the whole thing with Yosef. And then there's going to be the Mashiach, that's the whole thing of Yehuda. Yehuda's Mashiach is going to come from the tribe of Yehuda. And from Peretz, Yehuda had two sons. There was Peretz and Zerach. What happened to Zerach? Well, not too much. The fact is that, in comparison to Peretz, he was very unsuccessful. But we see, first of all, that it's mentioned, Rashi mentions that one of the direct relatives is going to be Achan. Achan was in the tribe of Yehuda, and when Joshua took all the Jews into Israel, and he conquered the cities, there was one city they conquered, which is called Ai, and he ordered everyone not to take any of the spoils of the city. And this fellow Achan did take the spoils of the city. So Zerach didn't have too good. But then there's also one of the Psalms in King, I think it's Psalm 89. It says, Maskil Eitan Ezrachi. There's Eitan that comes from Zerach, Ezrachi from the Zerach. So he was like from the offspring of Zerach. So that came out pretty good. But in any case, he didn't. If you want to know the family tree, what comes out from Peretz, look at the very, very end of the book of Ruth. And it says that from Peretz, there came, what was his name again? And there came like 5 generations, and the last of those generations is King David. Here, I'll read it for you just to make it a little bit easier. You can look at yourself. The book of Ruth, it says that Peretz, Yehuda gave birth to Peretz, right? And Peretz gives birth to Chetzron. And Chetzron gives birth to Rum. And Rum gives birth to Aminadav. Okay, get ready. Don't get bored. Aminadav, he gave birth to Nachshon ben Aminadav. Right? Nachshon, he was the one, the head of the tribe of Yehuda. He was the one who jumped into the sea first, when the split the sea. He jumped in first. And Nachshon, he gave birth to someone called Salma. And Salma, he gave birth to Boaz. Now, Boaz, he's one of the stars of the book of Ruth. Boaz was like the big righteous man of that generation. And Ruth, they call it in English, she converted with Naomi, her mother-in-law, to be like her, to be with her mother-in-law. And she converted, and she got married to Boaz. Now Ruth, she came from Moab, and Moab was one of the sons that came out of this illicit relationship between Lot and his two daughters. Anyway, Boaz gives birth to Oved. Oved gives birth to Yishai, and Yishai is David ben Yishai gives birth to David. So look in the book of Ruth, the end of the book, and you'll see that Peretz became very famous. And from David came all the kings, and eventually the king Mashiach is going to come from David, Mashiach ben David. Okay, let's try to make this fast. Ready? So Yosef is brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar buys him in Egypt. Right? The brothers, remember, they wanted to kill him, and then they threw him in a pit full of scorpions, and then they took him out of the pit, and they sold him to the Midianites, and the Ishmaelim, and the Ishmaelim sold him to the Midianites, and the Midianites, finally, they sold him to the Egyptians. To who? Potiphar. Potiphar was the servant of Pharaoh. Sarah Tabachim. Servant of Pharaoh. Says this also means that he was castrated, but not necessarily. Okay, so now it comes back to our story. Tell you that Yehuda went down because he sold Yosef, so Yehuda also came down. Also, this is going to be the story of the wife of Potiphar to the story of Tamar, right? Tamar, she was the wife of Yehuda. That was the story we just read yesterday. So she was a righteous lady. She didn't even want to shame. She would have rather died and been burnt than to shame Yehuda in public. And Potiphar's wife, we're going to see, she was really a bad story. Okay, but the fact of the matter is, just like Tamar, she went and dressed like a prostitute. She did it for the sake of God. Also, Potiphar's wife also did everything for the sake of God. Sharata Bestroglogia, she saw that Shalo Atida Lamid Bani Mimenu, that she wasn't going to have any children from Yosef. But she didn't know I'm sorry. She saw that she was going to have children from him. I read it wrong. Potiphar's wife saw that she was going to have children from Yosef, and they would be righteous. She saw how righteous Yosef was. We'll see. We didn't get to the story of Potiphar's wife yet. So she knew that she was going to have offspring from Yosef, but she didn't know how was she going to have offspring from Yosef? It was going to come from her, or was going to come from her daughter. And eventually Yosef gets married to her daughter. That's right. We're going to see the story later on. That's next week. After Yosef is taken out from the jail. Okay, here we go. 1 second. Here it says Yosef went down. Yosef went down to Egypt. It says it says twice. Yosef horad and Mitzrayim. Right? He went down. There's horidu, and he came down 2 times. He went down. What's this 2 times he came down? Went down. One of Yosef went down, and also he went down to hell. He went to hell. Why did he go to hell for? So to tell you that when a person goes down into exile, into prison, so this is in the place of going to hell. So it's 2. He got 2 for the price of 1. He was put into prison, and prison counts like prison and hell. Okay, God was with Yosef, and Yosef was a successful person, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. Says the Balaturim. Says the Kli Ykar. Oh, this is a little bit long. It says 3 times Vayehi. Vayehi Hashem and Yosef. Vayehi and Vayehi. It says 3 times Vayehi. Why does it say 3 times Yosef? He says this is 3 levels. That first of all, he let him work sort of outside, and then he brought him more inside until he gave him more and more responsibility. 3 times responsibility. I would like to read the whole thing. It's very beautiful, but we haven't got that much time. Sforno says that Yosef was successful. What do you mean that Yosef, it says, was Ish Matzliach, was successful? What was he successful? That he protected Potiphar, his new master, from those people who rebelled against him. Hashem was with Yosef, that he protected him, and also he was successful in also achieving any goal that he wanted to. So therefore, his master led him into his innermost chambers that he could serve over there. Okay, Yosef is really, no matter where he is, he's successful. Now, his master saw that Yosef, that God was with Yosef, and everything he did, God made successful in his hand. What does it mean that God was with him? Yosef was always mentioning God. Thank God, thank the creator of the universe, and etc. Yosef found favor in his eyes of this Potiphar. And he served him, and he gave him control over his house. Everything that he had, he put in his house, in his hands. Says, what does he mean? This call yesh lo nasan biyado. These are the last letters of Lamed, Shin, Vav, Nun, Vav. What is this? Lashono. This comes to tell us that Gabriel, the angel Gabriel, taught Yosef 70 languages, and therefore he was so successful because he could talk to any of the salesmen or whatever in their language. So he understood everything. And it happened that since he gave everything into his hands, that God blessed the house of this Egyptian for the sake of Yosef, and the blessing of God was in everything that he did in the house and in the field. It says, what does it mean? Yosef, usually he would sit at home. It says, but based, I don't know, in the house. It says Yosef, because Yosef was mourning for his father. He knew that his father must be feeling really bad. I mean, his father just sent him to see his brothers, and he didn't come home. So his father probably thinks he's dead. Therefore, he was just sitting in the house all the time, and he didn't go to big parties, because usually a person that's popular and successful, he's got a lot of friends, and they would invite him to these parties and things like that, and he wouldn't go. And God made a big miracle that not only what was in the house was successful, but in the field, even though they didn't wander around so much outside. That's what the Kli Ykar says. And therefore, when the master saw that everything he did was successful, so he gave him even more and more and more responsibility. Got this Potiphar, he was a master of meat. It says Potiphar Sarah Tabachim. He gave everything he had to Yosef, everything, and he didn't know anything, just the bread that he ate. Yosef was very beautiful, and he was very beautiful in appearance and in form. What's it got to do with anything? We'll see. It says the only thing that Yosef did not have control over was the bread that his master ate. And what does that mean? He said his master didn't have to worry about anything. He could just sit around. I don't know what they used to do back then, watch the Nile River or something. They didn't have television and didn't know. Anyway, whatever his master, people knew what to do back then also to waste their time. The only thing that he withheld from Yosef was the bread. What bread? His wife. It's just speaking nicely. We'll see later on that it doesn't speak so nicely. Yosef was very beautiful. Why? Because Yosef saw that he was a big ruler. and he saw that he was successful, so he could do whatever he wanted. So he ate kosher food. He started to how do you say, comb his hair and make himself look nice. Leader, he has to look nice. God said, your father is sitting in pain and you're fixing your hair. I'm going to send you the wild bear. Well, but that's what his father said, that wild animals must have eaten him. Okay, so what's going on? Yosef is having a good time. He's waving his hair and he's looking nice. And what happened? God said, shouldn't have done it. After these things, Patisa Ishes Adonav as Einea El Yosef, that the wife of Potiphar lifted her eyes and she saw Yosef. And she said, Shichvaimi, please lay with me. And says this was immediately afterwards. Said he was so beautiful, he was so handsome, she couldn't hold herself back. Now, this is nothing really unusual because it says that Egypt was a decadent country. Even it says that when there was the firstborn, the plague of the firstborn, that in every house there died several children. And the husband said, what do you mean? I only have one firstborn son. So it comes out that there was the firstborn from the mailman, and the firstborn from the milkman, and the firstborn from the postman. The firstborn, so that was, everybody was licentious over there. So and you don't have to be in such a terrible place. It happens everywhere. All of a sudden, the wife of Potiphar, she sets her sights on Yosef. And she says to him, come, lay with me. And Yosef refused. And he refused. And he said to the wife of his master, listen, my master hasn't Lo yada iti ma babayit. My master, he doesn't even know what's going on in his own house. Everything he had, he put in me. In other words, he has ultimate, total trust in me. Right? Rambam says that Yosef refused. So the Torah is telling us that he refused to do what she wanted to do, even though that she is his master. And he should have been afraid of her. But he was afraid of God more. And that's why it tells it that why it says here that he said to the wife of his master. He could have just said, he said to her, we know who she is, right? She said, lay with me. That's what she said to him. So it could have said, Yosef said back to her. He said, no, he said back to the wife of his master. Says that's why it says the wife of his master, because he should have been afraid of her, not to do what she wanted to. She could have him fired, she could have him put into prison, which in the end she did. Yosef is explaining, no one is greater in this house than me. He's not withheld anything from me except you, because you're his wife. How can I do this bad thing and I will be sinning to God? Rashi, what type of sin is there? It says, B'nai Noach, children of Noach, they're commanded not to have relations with somebody else's wife. That's the sin to God. Okay, when she spoke to Yosef every day, and he didn't listen to her, to lay with her or to be with her. Rashi says to lay with her even without having any relations with her, and to be with her because he knew that if he laid down with her, he wouldn't be able to control himself, and he would be la'olam haba in hell. He would be in hell with her. A lot of talking about hell in this Torah portion. What are we going to do? The Ibn Ezra says a little bit different. He says to lay down with her, even just to lay near to her, or to be with her, even to talk to her. That's what the Ibn Ezra says. Let's just sit down and have a talk over a cup of coffee. He didn't want to have anything to do with her. Interesting, he says, Liotimo, to be with her. This is the gematria of Latoch Ganom, to be in hell. He was a genius with these gematrias. Okay, and finally there come this one day, and Yosef came home to do his job, and there's nobody in the house. No one's there in the house. Rashi says two explanations. there came this day, this special day. What was the day? The day of festivities, the day of their holiday. All of them went to the idolatry places, whatever. And she said, no, there's no better way there's no better day than to trap Yosef than this day. So she said, I don't feel good. Sorry, I'd like to go to the whatever's idolatry house, but I can't go. I don't feel good. And Yosef came to do his work. Two opinions, Rav and Shmuel. One of them says that he came to work like he did every day. And one said he came to do his work with her. He gave in to her. But all of a sudden there appeared to him in front of his face the vision of his father, Yosef's father, Yaakov. Like it says in Masechah Sota, and he couldn't go through with it. She grabbed hold of his garment and she said again, come, lay down with me. And he left the garment in her. One second, 1 minute. All right, so of Potiphar is now making trouble for Yosef. And she wants Yosef to have sexual relations with her. And Yosef says, I can't do such a thing like that. It's forbidden. There's the 7 Noahide commandments, and it's forbidden to steal somebody else's wife. So I'm not going to do it. So she says to him, comes this one day, and it says that everybody, it was some big holiday. Some people say it was the birthday of Paro, whatever. Anyway, everyone goes to, we'll see later on, actually, there's a holiday. Anyway, there's some big holiday. And everyone goes to the holiday. And she says she's sick. And Yosef, he doesn't go to these holidays, these idolatry things. So he comes home. This is the ideal time to grab a hold of him. According to some opinions, Yosef actually gave into her. He actually was going to have relations with her, and that his father's face appeared in front of him and told him not to do it. In any case, she grabbed onto his garment. And she said, Shichva imi, lay down with me. And Yosef Yazov bigdo, and so he abandoned his garment in her hands. Instead of fighting with her, trying to get the garment back, he wanted to get out of there as fast as possible. And he ran, and he went outside. So we said, why didn't you say he ran outside or he went outside? What does it mean? He ran and he went outside. So one of the explanations, Sforno says that he ran. You can understand, I'm skipping a lot of these commentaries. I would like to go through all of them. We just don't have that much time. So he says, the HaChaim says, why did she grab a hold of his garment? Not in order to draw him back. She knew she wouldn't be able to draw him back. The reason she grabbed a hold of it was that he would leave the garment in her hand and she now would have evidence. So the garment, that was her intention, but she did not in fact say this, lay more to say. She didn't say anything. She would say in the future, here's the proof, right? That here's the garment. That's why she grabbed hold of the garment. The Sforno says that he ran, first of all, from her, but when he went outside, he walked slowly. That's why it says too, he ran away from her, but as soon as he got outside, then he started walking normally, because he didn't want anybody to notice what was going on, because then they might suspect that maybe he was running away, maybe he did something bad. So he just walked normally. In any case, Vayihiki Rota, when she saw that he ran away and that he left his garment in her hand and that he ran from her, so when she saw that, she screamed to the people that were around the house, and she said, look, they brought this Ish Ivri, this foreigner, came to make fun of us, to ridicule us. He wanted to rape me, and I screamed out in a loud voice, and that's why he ran away. So it says, why did she yell out to the people of the house? Said because she knew, the HaChaim says, she knew that Yosef was really right, and she knew that her husband wouldn't believe her. He knew that her husband wouldn't believe her words. That's why she called the people around the house, that they would get all excited, and then she would tell them and convince them, and she hoped that this excitement would rub off on her husband. Not only that, she said, she threw in a couple of also inflammatory words, a little bit of, how do you call it, bigotry over there. Said he brought in a stranger to make fun of us. And she didn't say to make fun of me, to make fun of all of us. Look, he's all of a sudden this Yosef. Who is this guy anyway? He came from nowhere. He's not one of us. And now he's ruling over all of us. He's the head of the whole house. She called all the other servants in the household. She said, she's ruling all over us. Now all of a sudden he's greater than everybody. We can't allow this to happen. And now he's gone too far. He even tried to rape me. She continues on. Look what this Jew did. When he heard that I was screaming, so he left his garment in my hand and he ran away outside, right? He saw that I was the one that was resisting. I didn't want to have relations with a stranger. And now his garment is by me. So she kept the garment by her until her husband came home. And she said to her husband, like this, your servant said to me, this Ivri, Eved Ivri, he was just an Eved, a slave, and an Ivri is like from the other side of the river. He's not one of us, that you brought to make fun of us. Rashi is going to say later on, he said, like these things, that she would tell him this. Here, we'll see, let's take Rashi. And it happened that when I screamed out, and he left the garment by me and he ran away. When her husband heard this, Ishto, brother, she said, like these things your servant did to me. Rashi says, what does it mean like these things? Beshat Tashmis, when he was having the Potiphar was having sexual relations with his wife said to him, hey, just what you're doing now, that's what the slave tried to do to me. He tried to do the same things to me. That's what he wanted to do, or that's what he did do. Right? In any case, Potiphar, Yosef, the Potiphar, the master of Yosef, took him and he put him into prison, the place where the prisoners of the king are, and he was there in prison. Okay, let's do this a little bit quickly now. Here we go. And God was with Yosef, and God gave him chesed. Chesed in this case means, he points out here, Rashi points out, chesed means that everybody liked him. Everyone saw him. That everyone saw him, liked him. And he found grace in the eyes of the chief jailer. And the Sar Besasor, he saw that Yosef was devoted to the thing. So he gave him all of the prisoners that were there, and everything he saw that Yosef gave the right advice, and he was really, so he let Yosef also was a prisoner, but he let him control the whole entire show. It says, like the Targum, Ketargum b'mimra hu mitaved. That means that Yosef, he told everyone what to do. He himself didn't do anything. Yosef had everyone under him were all servants. The chief jailer didn't have to do anything, because everything that he did, everything he saw that everything Yosef was doing, it was succeeding better. So his superiors would say, you picked the right man to get the job done. You're good. Okay. After these things is what happened. The minister of wine of the king and the minister of bread, they sinned to the king of Egypt to Paro. It says, what was the sin? One of them, the king found a little, a fly in his, whatever is his drink. And the other one found some sort of a little piece of wood or something, a sliver in his bread. So therefore, what do you do? You find a fly, you put him into prison. Okay, Pharaoh got mad at these two ministers, the minister of beverages and the one of bread, and he put them both in the jail, B'mishmar Sar Tabachim, in the jail, and the place where put him in the jail, the same place where so no one would run away. And the Sar Tabachim put Yosef with them, and he would serve them, and they were together in prison. How long? Yomim. They were 1 year, and both of them had dreams. Each one had a dream on a different night. And each one dreamed, I'm just going to go over this quickly. Each one had his dream that he didn't understand, and each one was given the explanation of his friend's dream. And Yosef came one morning and he saw that they were like all troubled, zoafim. They were like sad. They were very worried, troubled. And Yosef asked these two servants that were with him, Madua panechem ro'im hayom. Why is your face fallen today? Why have you got a bad look on your face today? What's going on? The Lubavitcher Rebbe says that, it was a pretty stupid question, because obviously they were sad because they were thrown into prison. And not only that, Yosef, he couldn't help them. They were in a better situation than him. Yosef, he didn't have anybody outside. Even his own brothers hated him. And they probably had people working for them outside trying to get them out. But Yosef couldn't stand to see a human being suffer. He couldn't stand to see any person suffer, even though these were Egyptians, and he should have been happy that they were suffering, to finally see the ones that made him suffer, they're suffering. But in any case, so they said, okay, we each one dream, and nobody knows what the dream means. They didn't tell each other their dreams either. What are we going to, so Yosef said, well, tell me what it is. God knows how to answer dreams. Maybe God will give me a blessing and let me. So the drink master told his story to Par. In the end of this drink master, the wine master, he's going to get out. He says, my dream is like this. There was a vine, and the vine, there were like 3 clusters of grapes. And there was like flowers on them and etc. with these. And the cup of Paro was in my hand, and I took these grapes and I squeezed them out into the cup of Paro, and I put the cup in the hand of Paro. Yosef said, I'll tell you what the dream is. The 3 clusters are 3 days. In 3 days, Paro is going to elevate you and free you. And he'll put the cup in your back in your hand like it just used to be, and you'll return to be the wine minister for Paro. But what? Please remember me, just like I did good to you. So please do with me, and mention me to Paro, and get me out of this place. Get me out of this place. Okay. Because I was stole from the land of the Hebrews. And also here, I didn't do anything wrong. Right? I didn't do anything wrong to this lady. That they put me here in this bore, in this prison. Okay, the minister of bread, he's the other one in prison. He saw that Yosef gave a pretty good interpretation. So he said, I also saw 3. I saw 3 baskets on my head, and in the bread, and there was all the food of Paro, the cooked things, and birds came and they ate them from the baskets on my head. Yosef said, well, 3 days, the 3 baskets are 3 days. In 3 days, Paro is going to elevate you, and he's going to take his head off of you. Take your head off you. He's going to hang you on a tree. And the birds are going to eat your flesh. And sure enough, and it came about the 3rd day. It was the day of the Paro's birthday, and he made a big meal, and he took out the wine minister and the bread minister from prison. And the wine minister, he put him back onto his original position, and he gave him a cup. And the other minister, he hung, just like Yosef said. And he got out. The wine minister got out, and he did not remember Yosef, and he totally forgot him. Rashi, he didn't remember him on that day that he got out, and he forgot him in the long term. Why? It says because Yosef depended on this minister to get him out. Therefore, Yosef is going to be in prison for 2 more years. Like it says, Yosef was such a big tzaddik, was such a holy person, that he couldn't act like everybody else. Other people should take natural means in order to get out of prison, get a lawyer, get whatever, if he has friends. But Yosef was so holy, and he was supposed to be the example of a Jewish leader, that he was supposed to depend totally on God for his own personal things. He was supposed to be an example of someone who really trusted God. But lo b'tach Mitzrayim, that Yosef is supposed to trust in God. Therefore, 2 years more was tacked on to the time until all of a sudden Paro was going to make his dream. The wine minister is going to say, hey, I think I might know somebody who can interpret your dream. All of the ministers of Paro came, and all the soothsayers, they couldn't do it. And suddenly he remembered that there's this Jew in prison that he interpreted for me. And from this, Yosef gets out and becomes the king of Egypt. As we'll talk about tomorrow. Tomorrow, God willing, we'll learn about the Haftorah this week's Torah portion. Good. Have a good day with Mashiach. Now, this is the 20th day of the month of Kislev. This is the day when the first Rebbe of Chabad actually got out of prison. Actually, he was announced yesterday, but his actual freedom actually occurred today. Chabad Hasidim are celebrating all over the world, and so will I. God bless you all. Have a good day we need Mashiach now. Yechi Adonenu, Moreno Rabbeinu, Melech Mashiach L'olam Moed.